What's up, folks? All right, so we're live here. Let me shut this window behind me. Um, I was actually planning on doing a video today that is on the I don't know if this is working. All right, so I was planning on doing a video where I was going to go over three different types of exits or three different types of acquisitions to scale a business that you're already in. But we had some questions on the multiple points of exits video from yesterday that I thought were good. We actually had several that came in. So I decided to switch over. I'm still going to do the three types of acquisitions to scale a business that you're already in or already own. I'll do that one tomorrow. And today I decided to answer questions. And since I'm going to be answering questions, I figure I'd do it live and go through some of I actually have email questions, some comment questions, and all of that. So we will go through those on this live. And then if you have additional questions, you can feel free to plug those into the comments and make sure there's clarity around this concept. So one of the questions that came in from Darren. What's up, Darren? Thanks for the email. Says, yo, Ace, while watching your video, I kept asking aloud the question, if you're trying to buy sub $500,000 revenue businesses, which I do want to clarify that in a sec, how do you protect yourself from buying a business that is too small, not having enough cash flow to pay for both myself and my partner? As my plan is not to run them day to day. Set me straight as I'm teaming with my 18-year-old son, that is awesome, to do deals and build a track record. I think it's also great that you're planning on, some I've talked about, it's like a lot of people focus on doing deals as opposed to trying to get started and build a track record. So let's go back to the beginning of this question. So one of the things that I do want to address is this isn't necessarily sub $500,000 revenue businesses. Revenue could be 2 million, 3 million. We're looking for $500,000 price of cost of business. So let's say if you're buying a business for a two multiple, you'd be buying that business and it's earning $250,000 a year. Now, one of the biggest things that people were curious about and that people reached out about when I want to start with this question is because this depends on where you're starting. A big part of this depends on how much money you're starting off with and, who you are. So if you're somebody who is super wealthy and you've got, millions in the bank, 10 million in the bank, it doesn't make sense for you to do this deal and not earn enough money. But if right now you're in a job and you're making $100,000 and you can buy a business, even if it's $500,000 business and it's at a 2.5 multiple, you're going to make anywhere from low 150 to if it's a 2 multiple, $250,000. Then you're going to end up making a lot more money because, as we all know, in addition to that, with the tax benefits and all that, to owning a business, you're going to, even if you're making $100,000, even if it was a 5 multiple business, you're going to make more money because you're going to be earning $100,000 as a business owner, which you get to pay the expenses and pay tax and everything after. So you actually end up with more money, even if you're making the same amount. So that's one thing I do want to make clear. Now, comparing the different people that are coming to the space, there are some folks that are coming and they have a tremendous amount of cash. If the big point here is that you want to diversify. Businesses that are sub $5 million businesses all have the same failure rate. And it just doesn't behoove you to max out all of your money in a single deal, knowing that at the end of the day, no matter how great the business is, the odds are stacked against you that at least if you only own one, you're in something goes wrong, and it doesn't even have to go all the way out of business. Just, industry changes, there's a decrease in earnings. Now, maybe you are sub the amount of money you want to earn. So that's kind of point one, is that the key here is if you have a substantial amount of cash and you can diversify and have $5 million businesses, or you're able to, do enough work to create the deal flow to have $5 million businesses. And when I'm saying I'm not saying a $5 million business, I'm saying 5 separate $1 million businesses and diversified, then that's great. You're going to end up kind of with a diversified portfolio of these deals. And the idea is that, if you're doing that, or like the example I gave, instead of having one huge egg in the basket as a $5 million business, even for that person that can stretch and get investors and get loans to get a $5 million business, they would be better off diversifying and having several of those deals. The other part of this is how do you protect yourself from buying a business that's too small, because you want to be able to not run them. And this was the other key point to what I was talking about. A big part of this is that I don't want to own the whole business. In order to diversify, what's most important, and I should share, I'll probably share on my Instagram a message that came in on an old video that talks about this concept of you don't want to be a business owner. I think a lot of us, most people that are on this channel, have read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and we forget, for some reason, the biggest lesson of the whole thing is, you don't want to be an employee. You don't want to be self-employed. You don't want to be a business owner. You want to be an investor. And it's funny because he wasn't talking about the video yesterday, but he's talking about an old video where I talk about that. And he's like, man, this is a guy that I actually know has done a lot of big business stuff. And that concept, a lot of people have forgotten because it's just not promoted. Everybody's, online promoting being the hustler, being the entrepreneur, starting business, owning a bunch of businesses. And that's what's cool. It's not cool to be an investor. Nobody really talks about that. And it's also just hard to show. Like, nobody's like on Instagram, it's just not as cool. So for whatever reason. So we've forgotten that big lesson that everybody's goal is to own a business, and the real goal should be to be an investor. And when you're thinking of yourself as an investor, of course, it's not even an option. You're saying our plan is not to run them day to day. As an investor, you don't even have the option of running them day to day. And that's why you want to get into deals where you're finding the partners, you're putting the people in place, or you're buying equity from the owners, which is a lot of options in some of the deals that you're looking at or that we look at. And you're going to go in and you're going to buy a minority position and structure that deal in a way that you still get that 3 multiple type of earnings. And that should be your goal long term, isn't to own a business, because no matter what, you're going to end up dealing with a lot of the headaches around the business. So that is the goal. And then I love the fact that you're working with your 18-year-old son. I think that's a great lesson for him. One of the things when I was young and had that transition, I didn't want to spend any money. And this was a lesson that came from my mentor that, I've talked a lot about, the Flip Hospitals. It's like, if you can make sure that all of your money, before it goes to an expense, it goes to an investment, and then that investment pays for the expense, you're going to be good. And, I was fortunate. I stayed at my parents' house, even while I owned businesses and some rental properties and all that. And I was able to make sure that, I did when I was young, because I was young and dumb. I wouldn't even buy one today, but I wanted a brand new Mercedes that wasn't used. It was, that year. It was actually, I bought it before it come out, because I wanted to be the first person with the Mercedes in the streets. So I buy this thing, but at least the smart part of as dumb of an acquisition as that was, the thing that I did do that was smart was I bought a quadplex that paid with the cash flow, it paid for the payment on that vehicle. So those are the kind of things, and it's thinking like an investor that gets you into that kind of position. All right, let's go to one of the next questions. Let's see here. So Stephen asks, but sell this small business not at a smaller multiple. Are bigger businesses not easier to operate and exit at a higher multiple? Basically, he's talking about when you've got a bigger business, in a lot of cases, you're able to sell that business at a higher multiple, which is 100% a fact. But the thing that I was talking about in the video is when you've got when you've got several businesses instead of just one, you're more likely to find that strategic buyer. And the very best buyer for any business is a strategic buyer. You're always going to get more money. It's kind of a blanket thing that a business that is for sale at a higher amount is going to have a higher multiple. But it's also the highest multiple business, which beats that, is finding that right strategic buyer. And the more businesses you have, the more opportunity you have to find those. And so we have to go back to the first thing that I talked about when I was talking to Darren, which is if you're somebody that can have diversification, should be first. It's just really the first rule of investing that all of us have learned, is that you've got to diversify. And I can tell you from experience that I have people reach out to me all the time that buy a business and something happens to it, it goes wrong, and that's it. And then we also just see a lot of really great businesses. I've seen businesses that are for sale one day. Everything looks absolutely terrific, whatever, a deal, they want too much for it or whatever. And then they come back 2 years later and something's happened, and, now it's ruined. It's not making money. They're asking if they can take the offer that I offered them 2 years before. And of course, I'm not willing to. And so things change in these businesses. The failure rate is super high unless you're dealing with a $100 million business. There's no business that's established enough that's going to beat the odds of, if you've got 10 of those, a certain number of them are going to fail. And it's too high a percentage for you to put all of your net worth into a single larger business. So the great caveat to this is that, there are going to be people out there that have tens of millions of dollars that they can still diversify and have the benefits of a larger business. So yes, it would be great if you could have a larger business and you could get a strategic buyer. But if you sink all your money into that one deal and all of a sudden something happens, it's just like putting all your money into a single stock. It's like, yeah, Apple looks great. It looks amazing. I've got it in my portfolio, but I'm not going to put all my money into it. And so people are overweighted when they buy these businesses. When you look at their portfolio and they're buying a 7-figure business, but then all of their other assets are, low 6 figures, that's not a smart portfolio. I would also recommend going back and listening to some of the videos or watching some of the videos where I talk about thinking about things like an investor. When I'm looking at the questions, a lot of people are looking at questions and ask questions like a business buyer. And there are a lot of people that are also promoting business buying. But the real goal here, and for me, I don't want to be an entrepreneur. there are plenty of people that are great entrepreneurs. I'm not one of them. I don't want to be one. And so it's also stands to reason that there are people that want to be great, that just want to buy businesses. And, I think this challenge is more for people that see themselves as investors. And as an investor, you want to look at your portfolio. And so you want to have a diversified portfolio of a lot of smaller deals. And so this is a great question. One of the reasons that I wanted to be sure that we, or both of these. So I talked a little bit about selling to strategic buyers. And one of the questions that came in is, are you selling the business to knuckleheads at higher multiples? And so, no, it's not the idea that you're just finding the biggest fool to sell to at a high multiple. It's that you are buying businesses strategically, and then you're selling them to strategic buyers that are willing to pay a higher multiple. Last question, and then I'll check comments before I log off here, because I'm actually going to be running to a meeting a little bit late. Let's see. All right. So also, are larger businesses not safer to hold long-term because they are more established? This is one of those things that's just, false. It's so size doesn't mean that the business has more longevity, especially in today's day and age with the internet and technology businesses. There's so many different factors when you're looking at due diligence and trying to project forward how things are going to change. You have SaaS businesses that are really large, that things change and they just totally disappear off the face of the earth. You can also have businesses that are, I've bought a $500,000 business that has been around for more years than I am old. At this point, it would be like 41 years, but when I bought it, it was like 33 years old, and I think I was 31 at that point. So I bought that business for $500,000, and it was a staple. It's not going anywhere. It was a great business. I've bought businesses in the same range as 20 years, 25 years, but I've also bought a $3 million business that was e-commerce that has only been around for 3 years. And that larger business has a lot more risk associated with it. So it's not so much that large businesses are bad. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's just for the average person that isn't able to create a diversified portfolio by stretching and trying to buy a single business with, all of the capital that they're able to raise, all of the, from investors, all of the capital they're able to get access to from loans and banks, and then, putting a lot of their cash in it. It is a very dangerous thing. And I definitely wanted to always be clear when people come to my channel that I don't agree with that. That's not how you succeed in this game. That's not how, if something goes bad, you're able to keep playing the game. In order to stay in the game, you've got to be able to withstand losses. And any broker that tells you that, this thing is established, it's been around, it's not going anywhere, they're selling you something. They're trying to sell you something. So keep that in mind. Obviously, this is for a very select group of folks that have a vision for their deal-making business that's kind of along the lines of becoming an investor. But I think that at the end of the day, if you want to be smart with your money, if you are able to diversify and have these really large businesses, then that's great. For me personally, I also, and kind of the final point that I want to be clear on is my goal is that I want liquid assets. And just the bottom line is that larger businesses aren't liquid at all. None of these assets are super liquid, because what's super liquid is a money market account or, stocks, that kind of thing. With these, As you get into larger businesses, those things, to get the multiples that you're talking about, you're sitting on the market for months and months and sometimes years, especially if you want to maximize the amount of money that you make. If you're talking about actually selling something quickly in that range, the multiple is actually lower than the smaller businesses because there aren't buyers that are sitting there ready to buy a larger business and pay those high multiples. Part of the reason that they're paying those high multiples is 6 months, they're going through all this due diligence, sometimes 6 months after LOI. A lot of my businesses, a couple $100,000 business, I can put that on the market, have it sold at ask today and be closed within a week or two. And so that's something that is of interest to me because I want to be nimble. I want to be able to react to changes in the market. And a lot of these things. And I'm going to go into some of these things because I'm talking about it from the perspective of an investor who's managing a portfolio, not somebody who has a dream of about trying to buy one single business and run it forever. All right, guys, unfortunately, I got some comments in here and this went a little bit longer than I thought just on that explanation. So we'll go back. If you can put these questions in, I wonder, I don't even know if live chat, if they'll have these comments in there. But if you can put the questions into the actual video, I'm gonna add it to the channel now. And then I'll get back to those ASAP. Thanks so much for checking it out. I gotta run to a meeting and thanks so much for watching.